Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this channel, the Renewing Faith Podcast. My name is Sarah, and I know I haven't filmed in almost 3 years now. It's been a crazy ride. It's been a wild ride, going through the pandemic and such, and life has been just going up and down, but I'm back. There are very exciting things coming to this channel, and I hope you stick around. So don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you are always reminded of the videos that come out, and don't forget to comment and like so that we can get these messages out to other people and to encourage other people as well. So with no further ado, today's video, I'm going to talk about my testimony. And we know that in our lives, we have experienced different things with God, without God, before we knew God, if we knew God, and we grew up knowing Him and our faith was really strong in Him. And then we go through hard situations. And in my life, about 2 years ago, I want to preface this video that prior to this event in my life, my faith in God was very strong. I very, very much believed that He was God of the impossible and that He was able to do anything in my life regardless of whatever that was, because I had seen Him so present in my life growing up. I've witnessed Him do miracles. I've witnessed Him make miraculous things happen within my family prior to this really tragic event. And so this is the first part to my testimony, and here we go. Let's dive into it. So 2 years ago, in January 2021, my parents had officially bought their first home. And prior to them buying their home, we were living in Miami. And so we were kind of looking forward, my family was looking forward to moving up north in Florida and kind of letting go of all the noise of the city, all the noise of the traffic, and kind of live a more low-key life, more peaceful, more calm, more nature, and to just really enjoy the blessings that God was really providing for us. But during that time, I had started a relationship where I thought that this person would be my future spouse, and in that case, it wasn't. And we went through a breakup 2 months into the relationship, and leading on to this really tragic event, I thought that I was grieving the breakup. My family thought that I was grieving this breakup, and I had been really grieving this for 2-3 months, and I didn't understand why I was so attached supposedly to this person, or my family didn't understand why I was so attached to this person if it was just such a short relationship. But in reality, it was like God preparing my heart, kind of starting that grieving process to what was about to happen. And so fast forward to March 2021, and we decide to go down to Miami to the church that we had attended prior to us moving. We had been there for about 5 years almost, and we were really excited because we were gonna do some festivities that they had planned, some celebrations. We were gonna hang out with friends, and my family was gonna be there, and we were gonna just have so much fun. But in our stay that weekend to do these celebrations and to hang out with, you know, our friends and with family, it turned into a great tragedy. Because that Sunday, so we arrived on a Friday to these events, and then we were supposed to leave on Monday. So because my family, we had just moved up north, we were staying for a short amount of time, and we were trying to enjoy what we didn't enjoy for all the many years that we lived down in Miami, which was roughly like 17 years that we lived down there. And we didn't really enjoy many of the tourist attractions that people come to see. And so we were trying to kind of enjoy that. We wanted to go to the beach. We wanted to hang out as a family and really enjoy this trip, because we weren't going to be coming back for a very long time. And so we wanted to take advantage of that. And so I just remember that we were all laying in the hotel, and I was kind of devastated. I was crying. I was having a very hard time. My parents thought it was because of this breakup, this past relationship. And inside of me, I knew something was wrong. I knew something bad was going to happen. I just didn't know how to express it other than through grief and crying. And so fast forward, it's like 4 p.m. and my dad comes up to me and he's like, listen, I want to talk to you. He gives me a kiss in my forehead and he says that he loves me. And at this point, I thought that was very odd, because my dad never did that. I mean, my dad loved me to pieces, but he just never came up to me randomly and gave me a kiss on my forehead. And he added after that, that he felt from God that whatever God had for me was going to stay no matter what happened. And so I was like, this is crazy. I don't know what's happening. And he got up and he's like, let's all get ready and we're gonna go on a beach night and we're gonna go hang out. And we all got ready. We left for the beach and we were there a couple hours hanging out with one of my mom's friends. It was really great. We were having a blast. And then my dad again comes up to me at the beach. He hugs me, he gives me a kiss on my forehead, and he repeats the same words, that whatever God has for me will stick and will not leave me. And at this point, it's around like 9 p.m. I'm getting hungry, we're getting hungry. We're trying to decide where to eat. The restaurants at the beach are really, really packed. The wait time is about 2 to 3 hours. We don't have time for that. My parents didn't like to be out late at night driving, and we were very far away from our hotel. So we decided that we were gonna go and buy pizza near the hotel and drive back and eat it there. So we head to the address that was placed on the GPS for the pizza place that was near our hotel. And what ends up happening is that we're driving down. If anyone who's listening to this has ever been to 8th Street, you get off of the highway and you're going through this street called 8th Street. And so this street in particular is known for accidents and people driving very recklessly, and for the most part, we always tried to avoid this road because we knew that it was dangerous, especially at night. So we're driving down 8th Street and the GPS kind of doesn't take us through the other main road, which is 107th. street, and we're at this left turn. There is no light. And we're in the car, and I remember that I was just on my phone. I was listening to music. I wasn't even paying attention to anything that was happening. And suddenly my mom tells my dad, hey, don't turn right now. Just wait. And then, as stubborn as my dad was, he was like, nothing's gonna happen. Like, I'm gonna turn. Look, the traffic, there's no traffic. Like, look. And so he decides to make the left turn, and I just hear this car, like literally. I am on my phone and I lift up my head and I turn my head to the right, and all of a sudden I just see this car that is on the opposite direction. We were going this way and they were going this way. And I just see the car all the way to the left side of the lane. And he just speeds up and tries to swerve us and just dives into the middle of our car. So he T-boned us. And at this point, all I did was I looked at the car and I closed my eyes. And I completely blacked out. And I don't know for how many hours I blacked out, but I do know that when the accident happened, it was around 9:45 p.m. on that Sunday in March. And it was just so crazy that the impact was so strong that you normally sit facing forward, and I was sitting sideways like this and like this, and I was completely unconscious. And then some time goes by, I don't know how long, and I wake up and all I could see was my dad, at the far end. He was in the driver's seat, he was driving, and he is completely turned towards the right, and my mother is completely turned towards the left, and they're looking at each other, and my mom is telling my dad to not close his eyes because at this point we had lost so much blood internally, and my dad had hit his head in the back of his skull so heavily that he was going into shock. He was hyperventilating. He couldn't breathe anymore. He probably had collapsed lungs. In reality, we don't know who called 911, how it happened, but thank God that they came. And despite the amount of time that it took for them to get us out of the car, they managed to get us out of the car. And so my mom is telling my dad to not close his eyes, to please keep breathing, and obviously they're taking him out of the car. My mom then tries to turn around and she looks at me straight ahead, and then she's like, don't close your eyes. And in that moment she falls unconscious. I fall unconscious again, and I could just hear, even though I was unconscious, I could still hear what was happening around me. I can hear how the paramedics are trying to break my mom's door and how they're trying to break my door, and they couldn't get my mom's door to open because it was so smushed. It was so like how metal gets when it's heated, that it kind of cripples up like that. Her door was so crippled that they had to get her out through my dad's side. And at this point, the paramedics get through my door and they take me out and they lay me down on the ground. And this is the first time in those 2 to 3 hours that we were in that car unconscious that I felt any pain. And it was completely the worst pain I have ever felt. And I'm laying on the floor and I've lost so much blood internally at this point that I'm starting to lose consciousness for real. Like, I'm almost gone. Like, in that moment, I feel like I really wanted to die, and I felt like I wanted to go into the Lord's presence. And I don't say this because I feel like I'm special or anything, because none of this is special at all whatsoever. But I had an out-of-body experience where my spirit started to come out of me, and I could just see myself. I was above my body, and I was seeing everything that was happening around me. And I could see the paramedics. They were trying to get my vitals. They were trying to get me to come awake. And it was just so insane. And in that moment, I felt such peace. I felt so comfortable just going into God's presence that I really didn't care if I came back to life or not. Like, if I left that day, if I left this earth that day, I would be completely happy. And all of a sudden, one of the paramedics was trying to get me to come back, and he like slapped my face. Not like in a harsh way. He just really tapped it kind of harshly a little bit. And then he said, "Little girl, open your eyes." And in that moment, it's like my spirit came back to me, and I was completely awake, and I was feeling all the pain inside of my body. And it was very intense, and it was very painful. But at that moment, I felt God was with me, because my mind went into like, what am I gonna do mode. Like, my emergency contact on my phone are my parents, and my parents are unconscious. Obviously, they were part of the situation. So I don't have any phone numbers memorized. I don't know who I'm going to call. I don't know what I'm going to do. And it's just insane. It's crazy. And so they get me into the ambulance. They're starting an IV, the usual things that paramedics do, to save someone's life. And in my head, this whole entire time, from the leaving the scene to getting to the hospital, I'm thinking inside my head, okay, who am I gonna call? How am I gonna do it? I don't have my phone. I don't have anything. These people don't know who I am. Like, I'm thinking to myself, like, is my brain even like functioning well? Like, yes, I'm thinking, but can I even talk? Can I move? Like, what happened? And thank you to the Holy Spirit, to God, that while I was in the trauma bay and they were doing what they were supposed to do on me to bring me back to life and to get me into recovery and all this stuff, and into x-rays and everything, he reminded me that the church that we had attended down in Miami, they had their phone number up on Google. And so I'm like, okay, I gotta get a nurse to bring her phone or his phone over here, and so they can search up the phone number and we can get someone down here. And crazy that night was the first day of the celebration that we were there to celebrate. And so with the strength that I did have, the little strength that I had, I managed to call a nurse into the room. And I was like, listen, hey, like, I know who to call now. Please go into your phone and on Google type this church name and call this phone number. And once you call the phone number, ask that person to give you this other person's phone number, and call them and tell them what happened. And I authorized them to come and really take hold of the situation, because I was going into surgery a little bit of time after that. So I really wanted to make sure someone was there to be on top of it, to really be on top of it. And so that's exactly what happened. She called the pastor of the church. He took only 15 minutes to get there. they allowed him into the room and I told him what happened. The doctors kind of caught him up on what was going on with my dad, with my mom, and with me. And at that moment, I felt really relieved that someone was actually there to, take hold of the situation and that we weren't going to be alone. And I kind of let go, and I was ready to go into surgery to repair all the internal bleed that I had. And I really didn't know, I didn't really know if I was gonna come back to life, if I was gonna go during surgery, or they were gonna put me in a coma, or what was going to happen, because it was very, very strong. So they take me to surgery, and I wake up about like 4 or 5 days later. I'm not really sure with that timeline, but they told the pastors from my church that I was the worst one to have had the impact of the accident, to not expect anything of it, and that they didn't even give me the rest of the night after the accident, that I wasn't even gonna wake up. And I am just amazed that it's been almost 2 years and I'm the one that's alive. And so my dad actually passed away once he got to the hospital during surgery. And then my mother, she lasted about a month after the accident, and then I had to make the decision to unplug her because she had suffered many aneurysms and many procedures to correct the aneurysm, and her brain was just shutting down. And I didn't think it was fair for her to stay alive suffering, because it wouldn't be a life for her and it wouldn't be a life for me, and it would have been selfish of me to keep her alive just because I wanted my mom to be with me. And so I wake up after surgery and I'm intubated, and obviously I know I'm in the hospital. I have a neck collar, and I'm completely sedated, like completely sedated. They're trying to wake me up. They're trying to see if my lungs, which had collapsed, were functioning properly, if I could possibly breathe on my own to extubate me. And then I couldn't feel a thing because I was heavily drugged. They had given me the highest dose of morphine, and they had that going on all day, so I couldn't feel a thing. I really didn't know the severity of my injuries until they started doing physical therapy on me at the hospital. And so I'm here and I'm just, trying to recover, trying to make sense of what just happened. And in my mind, at this point, I'm obviously in denial, which is one of the first stages of grief. And in my head, I'm like, no, God is good. There's going to be a miracle. He's going to do what he has to do, and we're going to get back to it. I had a feeling that my dad was no longer with us, but I had faith and I had hope that my mom would recover and that we would go home together. And that wasn't the case. And so I had this verse in my mind, 100% believed it. And it's in Job, and it says that if we are able to accept the good things that God gives us, how are we not able to accept the bad things? And I started to reflect on Job's life, because we know that he went through a lot. God allowed his kids to pass away, and he let him get sick, and he was tempted by the devil. And we know all these things from Job's story. And I was kind of reflecting on that, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be strong like Job, and I'm going to remain in faith, and I'm going to trust God in the process, and I'm going to just look towards him for help, and I'm gonna get out of this, and I'm gonna recover. And at this point, I'm thinking all of these things throughout my stay at the hospital, which was about 2 months. And in my head, I was like, this is gonna be a breeze because God is with me and he won't leave me. Little did I know that the doctors come in and they tell me, listen, you have a neck injury on your C2 axis, which is what controls your movements. It's right up here. The airbags had caused whiplash when everything happened. So it was so crazy that excuse me. It was so crazy that it was so crazy that I thought that it was going to be easy, and it really wasn't. And I was very naive about that because prior to this accident, I literally lived in a bubble. I went everywhere with my family, everywhere with my parents. Like, I was just a homebody. I didn't really have that many friends or anything, and I just liked to be home and spend time with my family. And the doctor keeps telling me what my injuries are, and I had 5 broken ribs on my right side. I had both of my lungs collapsed. I had that injury in my neck. I had tears in my kidneys, in my colon, in my liver, and I had my pelvic girdle had completely shattered. Fortunately, to repair my pelvis, they didn't have to do surgery. It healed on its own. But they had told me that my recovery would be almost 2 years. And so we're at the 2-year mark this month. So it's just so crazy and so wild to me that it didn't take that long. I was able to recover in about 3 months completely with my surgery scar and all my fractures. I was able to start walking 2 months after the car accident. I was really determined, and I think God played a huge role in that because my mindset was like, I'm gonna accept the good things of God and the bad things of God. I'm gonna accept everything that God has allowed in my life. And so fast forward a couple of weeks, and then it was my dad's funeral. I wasn't able to attend my dad's or my mom's funeral. And through all of this, I had amazing support from the church that I had attended. And I was just really trying to focus on trusting the process that God had chosen for my life. Later in time, I realized that God didn't really want this to happen in my life, but because of those generational curses and those generational spirits that were lingering from my ancestors, for those that believe in that, I strongly believe that things that happen because of 4 to 3 generations prior, they opened spiritual doors and they didn't close them, or they didn't know God, or God didn't reveal it to those previous generations to pray about it. And so in my mind, I kind of started reflecting on that, and God started showing me. But after leaving the hospital, it was very hard for me to get into prayer. It was very hard for me to get into worship. Even though I started attending church and I was going to the Bible studies and I was participating in the worship team and all this stuff, I still didn't, in my heart, deep inside of me, in my soul, I wasn't comfortable with any of it because I was starting to have conflict with God. And that is one of the things, especially those that grew up in faith, grew up trusting in God, saw his miracles, saw all the wonders that he did, and to go through such a traumatic event and then he didn't listen to my prayers I felt he didn't listen to my prayers. I felt he didn't care what I was going through, what I was feeling. And so I just didn't want to have to do anything with God. But in my heart, because of what my mom taught me, I knew that I had to stick with God because he was the only thing that I knew. He was the only thing that I had. He was the only one that could heal my heart. I just didn't have that motivation or that determination or the desire to really spend time with God. And so it's taken me a 2-year process to get back into my relationship with God. And this is not the only side. This is not the only part of this story. This story and my process goes on for a while. I am just gonna do it in parts so that these videos aren't too long. But the last thing I want to say is that I was able to recover because in that moment in the hospital, I trusted God and I was determined to get out of that. Even if I was going to be paralyzed, even if I wasn't going to be able to move, even though my life was going to change and I wasn't going to have my family anymore, I knew that I just had to do it for myself because no one else was going to do it for me. And so fast forward, a month goes by and then the doctors come in and tell me, hey, listen, your mom is no longer responding to the interventions we're doing for her aneurysms. And there's only 2 things that could happen. Her cranial pressure is increasing and we need to take her for an emergency surgery, but 2 things could happen. Number 1, she could be a vegetable for the rest of her life, or 2, she could pass away during this procedure. And I remember I just sunk into that bed because she was progressing so well, like 2 weeks prior to this. And I just sunk into that bed and I just started screaming. Like I had a full-blown panic attack for like 30 minutes. And my heart rate went up so high to like 180 that they were like, if you don't calm down, you yourself are gonna have a heart attack. So calm down. And it was one of the worst nights, despite the night of the accident. This was one of the worst nights of my life because I held my mom in such a huge pedestal. She was such an idol for me and I didn't even know it. And it just broke my heart that my best friend, she knew everything about me. I trusted her with my entire life. She trusted me with many of her things, and to not have her anymore, that was such heartbreaking news for me. And that same night, God gave me a dream. And in this dream, we're in this house. This was the house that my parents had bought where I'm sitting today. And in her office, in this dream, we were in her office and she was giving me her testament, and she was giving me her will, and she was like, listen, I've worked so hard my whole entire life to give you the best, and this is all that I have. This is for you. And she said, this is a goodbye in the dream. And the next morning I woke up and I was completely in denial, and I was like, this is not a dream from God. God is not a God who is gonna make me suffer. No, not at all. And reflecting back on it, we see that with Jesus. Jesus had to endure suffering so he could, save humanity. He had to endure the cross so he could overcome death and beat death and all the other sins and things like that. And I'm like, you know what? I was in denial for like a week. I was extremely in denial. So when the doctors came and said this, I was like, no, like that's not gonna happen. Like God is gonna heal her. The surgery is gonna go completely and perfectly fine, and we're not gonna have a problem. We're gonna go home together. That was my mentality, and I was just not accepting it. And then I'm here getting transferred to another hospital for rehab, which I was gonna be there for 2 weeks, and my mom 3 days later, the nurses from the hospital I was at first called, and they're like, listen, we need you to make a decision. Your mom is no longer responding, and you need to make a decision if you're going to put her on life support or if you're going to unplug her. And my heart completely shattered even more, because now my mom's life was in my hands, and I'm like, what do I do? Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, if I unplug her, I'm killing her, but then she's going to be a vegetable for the rest of her life, and that's not going to be a good life for her or for me. She's going to suffer, and I'm going to have to be home looking after her all day long, and I'm not going to be able to go and work or anything. And how are we going to sustain the bills for this house and all that and all the in between? And so it's so crazy that I had to make that decision. And 3 days later, they unplugged my mom, and a week later after that, I was discharged from the hospital. And so this is basically the end of what happened during the accident and my stay in the hospital. So I hope you guys are encouraged by this, that God can do miracles in your life, even though some circumstances don't look like miracles. God saved my life. God healed my body, and he has renewed my faith. And I can sit here today to tell you this story because I had decided in my heart that I was going to trust him with all of my life, and I was not going to hold on to the past anymore. And I decided to forgive the people that crashed into us and caused the accident, and I could live in the freedom and in the certainty that my parents are in God's presence and I have nothing to fear, and that one day I will see them again. And so I hope you guys take something from this video, some encouragement, to shed some light on trauma, and that it is very difficult to overcome, and also to remind you to stay tuned for part 2 of my testimony. And I hope to see you in next week's video. Bye.